Fox State College.
Happy Valley United is the NIL collective that serves all 31 sports and over 850 student athletes at Penn State. These opportunities allow student athletes to engage with charitable causes and participate in business engagements to build their brands while making a positive impact. The collective connects fans, alumni, businesses, and charities with student athletes harnessing the power of Nittany Nation. Go to happyvalleyunited.com to connect with your favorite Nittany Lion team.
Whether a department outing, entertaining your clients, or reconnecting with your family and friends, let Revel XP take the hassle out of tailgating. Simply show up and immerse yourself in the tailgating experience. Full service includes bellhops helping upon arrival and tear down when you're ready to leave. Revel XP elevates your tailgate. Reach out to us directly at 814-933-4100 or go to revelxp.com for more info.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing of State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
I'm the Modelo Recruiter, and I'm looking for fans with good hands and great speed. The ones who stay focused and never miss a play. They go the distance on game day, even when their team is away. I'm always watching, always looking to reward more full-time fans. Because football isn't really football without you.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Hi, welcome to Timberland Federal Credit Union, a financial cooperative for its members, tracing all the way back to 1973.
Experience Timberland Federal Credit Union, where you're greeted with a smile and financial solutions are tailored to your unique life journey. Here, we're not just financial professionals, we're your neighbors, people invested in your financial needs, literacy, and empowerment. Your dreams matter to us, whether they're about buying a home, growing a nest egg, or embarking on new adventures. TFCU draws from the past and invests in the future, offering modern tools like online banking to give you the freedom to manage your money practically anytime. Additionally, we're passionate about giving back both time and resources because enhancing our community is at the core of why we're here. Visit TFCU in person or online to learn more about our services and apply for a membership today.
Hello and welcome to Friday Football Frenzy, brought to you by Keystone Sports Network, Fox Sports Radio 98.7, and Happy Valley United, the Penn State collective supporting over 800 student athletes. Now, let's start the football frenzy.
Hello and welcome to the Friday Football Frenzy, brought to you by Happy Valley United. And we are coming to you live from the Buffalo Wild Wings in downtown State College on Fox Sports 98.7. I'm Jim Galanti. He is Chris Buchignani. Chris, how'd you survive this crazy week?
Hey, I'm still here. I'm still smiling. Jim, I wanted to actually open the show a little bit differently than we normally do. Really anything that I do in any other format. So I'm gonna read something for the audience.
Okay.
And probably a lot of folks know this. I know you do. This is the poem "If" by Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired of waiting. or being lied about. Don't deal in lies. Or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss and lose, and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on, and when there is nothing in you, except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch. If neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And, which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Now that poem, Jim, was printed on the back of the programs at Joe Paterno's memorial when he passed. And maybe as you hear them today, you think they're about James Franklin. Or maybe you think they're about us. And maybe the divide between the two is not nearly so wide as you would make it. And maybe it's narrower than any of us realize. But on this beautiful Happy Valley Homecoming Friday, if you can sit for a few hours with those words of wisdom that have endured throughout the ages, maybe it'll help you get through what has been a pretty chaotic time at Penn State and for Penn State football. So let's get into it.
No, I'm sorry. I cannot treat triumph and defeat the same. That's a tough one, and I guess
It's
that's
the challenge of our times, my friend.
That makes us. Are you speaking more about the fan base or James Franklin?
Well, here's what makes this moment difficult. I could probably spend the next 20 minutes, although I won't, arguing both ways, and at the end of it, convince you and the audience.
Yes, they are words of wisdom.
By the way, if somebody trips over that cable, that's called assumed risk.
Yeah, I was looking. We set up chairs to block that so they don't do it. So what they do is just come up, they move the chair. If there is a problem, there is a solution. There's a way around it. and folks are finding that. Let's start with the fan base and how this Rudyard Kipling fits the fan base.
Yeah.
They are not treating victory and defeat the same, Chris. Okay?
Well, and listen,
that's understandable.
And they're not. And I am often forced to remind people that an element of what we in Happy Valley call the grand experiment is success not only off the field, but on it. Once upon a time, talking about the scandal aftermath, I said for a documentary, this is America and winning matters, specifically in reference to why it mattered that the 2012 team ended their season with a win over Wisconsin. But we're not here just to have a family atmosphere and have a culture that endures and produce exceptional young men who succeed after their football careers are over. Although we are surely here to do all of those things, we're also here to knock the snot out of the opposition between the lines when it's time to do that and to come away victorious. And that's why although you must cultivate a mindset that treats them the same, that's only to prepare you for the reality that they're not.
You know, Chris, when you harken back to Joe Paterno, my first thought is always success with honor.
Mm-hmm.
Success with honor.
Correct.
Not just honor.
Yeah.
Success. And part of that success is on the field. But when you talk about success or not on the field, it's also about reaching an expectation level for different teams. You talked about the scandal years where the team was punished in so many ways. The standard for success on the field was different than what it is today.
Sure.
When James Franklin first got here, 7-6 was not considered a failure. Not by everybody.
No, far from it. I mean, to me, that's one of the more miraculous aspects of that story, that throughout that time period, Penn State never had a losing record.
But
which I do feel compelled to mention Pitt did during the same time period. I'm just saying. Just saying.
That's fine. And
you all had 85 scholarships and still couldn't do what we did, but it is what it is. Yeah. Moving on.
So it is about expectations for a team.
Yeah.
And the expectations for this year's team were sky high going into the season. Sky high. And Chris, deservedly so. Sometimes you could look back and say, nah, that was wrong. We were wrong-headed. We didn't get it right. But this is virtually an offense anyway, the team from last year that made it into the playoffs, won a couple playoff games. Yes, I know Tyler Warren's not there. I get it.
Sure.
I truly do. But it wasn't like, gee, there's nothing left in the tight end cabinet. The offensive line, 4 out of 5 starters, but 7 out of 8 rotation players are back.
Sure.
Your quarterback comes back, who would have been drafted, okay? I'm not sure what round, but he would have been drafted last year.
Yeah, no question.
And he chose to come back.
Yep.
Your 2 All-American running backs are back. But from day one, this team has not met expectations. And I know the point spreads aren't everything, Chris, but there's something. They establish what the expectation level is for this team or any team.
And there's no question that Vegas knows what it's talking about, right?
They know what they're talking about, but they didn't know what they were talking about with Penn State because they had that same level of expectation that everybody else did.
Yeah.
They're 0-5 against the spread.
You'll forgive me if I'm lacking in empathy for the Sharps in Vegas. But yes.
Forget them. Yeah. How about Jim?
Yeah, indeed. For you, Jim, I will reserve
and my
great
kind
deep well of empathy. How's that?
And that's when, with a team and a coach, James Franklin, who does traditionally very well against the spread. When he's playing a cupcake, he runs it up on them.
Yep.
And as much as, you're going to come back 1-11 against Ohio State, do you know they have a winning record against the spread against Ohio State?
That doesn't surprise me, only because I'm not real into the whole sports betting thing. Certainly.
Well, neither am I, really.
Look, Horn and Mailman are really into it, so I absorb a lot just from being around those guys. And I do know that traditionally Penn State has had a tremendous success against the spread throughout this era. And it's still, I don't know about you, Jim, it still feels a little weird for me, even as we're sitting here at Buffalo Wild Wings and I look around and there are ESPN shows that are completely devoted to betting. It feels a little weird for me to talk about that, but it has become such an integral part of pro and college sports that I don't even think it's unreasonable to expect that at least on some level, beyond, when Bill O'Brien talked about 24-point underdogs after we beat Wisconsin at the end of the 2013 season, for coaches to be aware of that, to say, hey, I got a lot of fans with a lot of money on the line here. It serves everybody's purposes. I'm going to let my backups execute the full offense so they get reps. And if they happen to put the ball in the end zone and that beats the spread, then all the better.
But you know what? Forget the betting aspect of it, Chris. What those lines do is they tell you what the level of expectation.
It's indicative of expectation.
Yeah,
sure.
And this team is 0-5 against the spread. They're 0-5 against expectation.
Yeah.
And that's the takeaway from it. And before we get, totally immersed into this year's team, Chris, you're the professor. You knew I was never going to let that go. You know that. So give us a little bit of a history lesson. What does this last 2 weeks losing first to Oregon, and more importantly, the loss to UCLA. Is there anything in Penn State's football history that this reminds you of?
Well, again, we did once upon a time in 1889 lose 106-0 to Lehigh. So
those engineers.
Yes, if we are indeed considering.
My understanding was in that game they controlled the line of scrimmage.
I think so. Yes, if we are considering the full breadth of program history, all the way back to the days of leather helmets and pantaloons, then I feel like when you get blanked and you give up triple digits, that's pretty bad. That's tough. That's tough to top. In the modern era,
and not surprisingly, Lehigh covered the spread.
I have no question. I find it hard to believe we were more than 107-point dogs, or 106.5, I guess. In the modern era, it probably has no comparison. When you look at the expectations, the stakes, the roster talent, and the situation leading up to the game that divided the two teams, certainly there are games folks will talk about. The 83 Nebraska game coming off the national championship season where you get absolutely pummeled. The 2000 Toledo game, which unfortunately has the distinction of being my first game on the air as a student broadcaster here at Penn State. The 6-4 loss to Iowa, the 9 overtime loss to Illinois, all of those are bad. If I had to power rank them, which I probably would prefer not to do, and maybe the audience would prefer I not do either, I would put that 9 OT loss to the Illini on homecoming maybe up at the top of the list, because like this last week, Penn State was ranked 7th in the nation, but the talent Brett Bielema had on that team and the stability of their coaching situation versus the complete mess, the chaos that was Westwood as Penn State went out there, what the Nittany Lions had on the line, and the coaching situation. You know, you got Sunshine from Remember the Titans out there, doesn't even know how to work the headset, has never called plays before, and we get embarrassed. Yeah, I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat. It's the worst. So if people out there are upset, you have every right to be. It is justified. That is correct. It's so far below the standard that a generic top 25 program ought to have for itself, let alone one that is part of the exclusive club that Penn State is. I know people want to argue yes or no. Are we a blue blood? I think you can absolutely make that argument. And if we're not, we're the first team out, so to speak, in that conversation. To fall that far below the standard it's unacceptable and embarrassing.
Well, we're going to get to that game in a second. I was thinking through, and a couple of the situations that I brought up or I thought of.
Can I just say one more thing before you say that? When I use those words, I understand they're strident. That, unfortunately, is a game of football. My co-host, Noble, who has been through it on every level, he's played and coached at every level of football. And he said, this game will humble you faster than very few other things you will do with your life. And so sometimes that happens. And sports, one of the things I love about it, even though it's not always pleasant, teaches you life lessons. And many of them aren't fun to learn, but it teaches you life lessons. And one of them is that sometimes things go really, really badly. And then the only thing that is left to you is to control what you can control, which is how you respond to those circumstances. And so that's a life lesson that sports is going to teach everybody on the Penn State football roster and in the coaching staff right now.
Well,
you can embrace that or not, but that's where we are.
It leads me to one of my favorite sayings is, people will talk about losses building character. I prefer the losses expose character. It tells you.
Probably both are true.
It tells you what you're made of. And we're going to talk about how this team reacts to it.
Yeah. But
in looking at Penn State football history, the couple games that stuck out to me, you brought up the loss to Illinois in 9 overtimes.
Yeah.
That came, though, after the week after they lost to Iowa.
Correct.
When they were 5-0.
Yep.
Undefeated, ranked number 4 in the country, playing the number 3 team in the country. Yes, Iowa was number 3. And that was just 4 years ago.
And again, if we're making you sad listening to all of this, allow me to remind you that Iowa was absolutely exposed as the fraudulent joke they were as a top 3 team the following week when Purdue, who stunk out loud, came to Iowa City and blew their doors off on Iowa's homecoming.
That was not a good, let alone great Iowa team.
That's my favorite college football game not involving Penn State in the history of the sport. God bless those Purdue Boilermakers for that game. It perks me up and makes me happy just thinking about it.
Where does Northern Illinois and Notre Dame fit in that ranking?
Nowhere. Let's not talk about Notre Dame last year. But let's not discuss
in that game, Penn State had the lead early. They were playing well. Sean Clifford goes out hurt, and things just went to hell in a handbasket.
By the way, number 2 is Oregon State beating Pitt 3-0 in overtime in a bowl game. That's my second favorite. Sorry,
okay,
go on.
Penn State and whoever's playing Pitt, the old say, and so that season started 5-0 and ended 7-6.
Correct.
Okay. The other one, the 99 loss to Minnesota.
Yes, sure.
When that team was ranked actually number 2 in the country. I think they were Sports Illustrated cover before the season.
Yes.
Courtney Brown, LeVar Arrington, they were cruising along, number 2 in the country. Minnesota comes in, and on a 4th down prayer, pass gets deflected into the hands of the receiver. Minnesota goes on to win that game. What was it, 24-23, something like that?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And Penn State proceeds to lose its final 2 games of the season. The wheels came off.
Sure.
9-0 became 9-3.
Well, at that time, your first loss essentially disqualified you from national championship contention. And I think with the expectations heading into that 99 season and the number of upperclassmen on that team, or at least guys who knew they weren't going to be there for another season. LeVar Arrington was a junior, but clearly that guy was fated to go to the NFL draft at the end of the year. Once they took that first loss, I think they just took their eye off the ball. They were not the same team.
I have a friend who was on that team and said exactly those words. They, had it been the 12-team playoff, they probably would have looked at it very differently.
Sure, of course.
But I think there's some lessons in the history books there, Chris, which is that these are still young men. Not that we at our ages would be so much more mature in handling this emotionally. I could tell you I wouldn't be, but these are young guys where emotion is part of this. So when they're coming off that emotional loss to Oregon, and it was, they were, as poorly as they played through much of that game, they were a bounce of the fumble.
At the end. Yep.
And how different would that team emotion be getting out of that game?
Yeah.
So when they go to UCLA, and by the way, before someone says this, because I've heard it from my listeners that I'm, making excuses for the team. No, I'm not. I'm just going through all the aspects, everything that went on there. And, there's no other way to put it in this UCLA game. You and I were talking before the broadcast, Chris, that I'm not sure I've seen a Penn State game where I look at the coaching of the game and say, that's where I'm laying a lot of this blame. You brought in, the $3 million man as the defensive coordinator, and you give up 17 points in regulation to Oregon and you give up 45 to UCLA. How do you explain it? And you have, what makes it worse is you have a color guy on there, Gary Danielson, and I don't care what you think of him, good, bad, indifferent, but he's a guy early in this game who's saying, hey, they don't have a spy on this quarterback, and he continually keeps beating them on 3rd down.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it? So the coaching and the single play that I think, most obviously points at coaching is the onside kick. And we talked about not getting into the nitty-gritty of the last game and what went on, but I think we need that to establish, the conversation going forward. But, how could you not point at coaching? Their coaching staff saw something that our coaching staff apparently was unaware of.
Yeah.
And, you could go on and on if you want to talk about Katron Allen not getting enough touches. there's enough blame to be spread throughout the entire coaching staff, along with, yes, the players. So the question becomes, Chris, what went wrong? How could all of it go wrong in this kind of game? And by the way, with everything that went wrong, and it was everything in that first half, they found themselves down by less than one score, 6 points.
Yeah.
Early enough in the third quarter that if I wish I would have done a quick lookup to see what the betting line was at that moment, okay? But I'll bet you it was on Penn State within one score, and it looked like the defense was going to come out and do their job with a 3 and out. They handled first down, they handled second down, and on third down, oops, here we go again.
Yeah.
Exactly how you got your butt kicked in the first half. Exactly the same thing again.
Kind of like watching the Eagles last night.
Kind of like watching the Eagles. Yeah. So
I'm having a heck of a week, Jim. I'll tell you what.
Your Phillies,
Yeah.
your Eagles.
Yeah. These are the times that try men's souls.
Fortunately for me, my Mets have been out for
There
a
you-
week and
there
a
you
half,
go.
so
There you
I'm
go.
still a little
Yes.
numb from that. But
Yeah, spread the disappointing failures out.
help me here, Chris. Help me out.
Yeah.
Help out a friend here.
Okay.
This is the question I'm getting from everybody all week. I have people I hadn't talked to in months calling me up. Jim, what happened? So I've said, I don't know. I can't explain it. When I want answers, though, I go to the professor. What happened?
I mean, this is not an answer that's going to bring any comfort into anyone's lives.
We're not looking for comfort. We're looking for truth.
Because it's really kind of similar to why did that oddly shaped inflated pig bladder we call a football bounce off Derek Fox's hands and into those of Arlen Bruce? Why 2 weeks ago did it bounce directly back up into Dante Moore's hands? Because sometimes there are cruel twists of fate, and occasionally they align in what we have come to call a perfect storm, which is a coincidental alignment of typically negative and yet unrelated factors. And that was Penn State UCLA from top to bottom on Saturday. You know, one of the things that started to make me feel a tad uneasy heading into the game last week was, given the situation at UCLA and the way NCAA rules have changed, there was a 30-day window in which anyone on that roster could declare for the transfer portal. Now, they couldn't play somewhere else this season, but they could move to another program. The majority of them had played some snaps through 4 games of that season, meaning that if they did not declare an opt-out prior to the Penn State game, if they played at 1 snap against Penn State and had appeared in the 4 games prior, they forfeited their red shirt if they then chose to enter the transfer portal. So late last week, I was scouring the UCLA fan sites and the college football news wires looking for who may have indicated they'd not be available for the Penn State game. And it turned out not a single guy left. In fact, they were so confident that was going to be the case. Their interim coach, Tim Skipper, came out on Friday afternoon and said, we're expecting full participation and availability from the roster. And I thought, man, you would have expected the exact opposite. You would have thought there'd be rats fleeing the ship left and right. So whatever it is that interim staff they've cobbled together is selling in that locker room, they're getting buy-in. And we don't know, as you brought up, the volatility of the 18 to 22-year-old psyche. What this team will be thinking coming off a crushing loss to Oregon and having to go across country, not to bring up the travel angle, but it's just one of those things that either brings you together or it just adds another stressor. And I thought, man, if that team is really buying into they have nothing to lose, and our team is not approaching this game with that same mentality, that we're now free of those expectations, that may have been weighing on us through the first 4 games of the season, things could go badly. And indeed they did. And it snowballed in opposite directions for both clubs.
And,
perfect storm.
With everything that happened to UCLA, and first of all, by the way, I thought Nico would have been the first one out the door. And
sure,
he's probably saying to himself right now, why in the world did I wait till game 5 to have a game like that?
I mean, that guy, look, I have zero respect. I don't know all the details, but it is tough for me to feel anything but disdain for a guy who bails on a playoff team from the position of leadership on the roster to take more money. I just think that's gross. And I could never do that to my teammates.
Well, the comparison to the NFL where free agency happens and any, professional sports, hey, he just took advantage of free agency.
Sure,
but somehow,
and joke's on me because he looked like,
but
what's that? What was his name? Peterman, the pick quarterback. I love ragging on Pitt,
yes.
Who threw 5 picks for Buffalo. He looked like Peterman versus New Mexico and Michael Vick versus Penn State, right?
Right. And just the point, it's still college, so you don't expect that to be happening at the college level, as you pointed out, the position that he was in. And, but all right, Chris, how about we start looking forward a little bit and
Please. Nathan Peterman. That was his first name. All I could think of was Jay Peterman. He ran
actually, at first, that's where I thought you were going.
He had the calendar, or the catalog, that Elaine Bennis worked for Jay Peterman. No, Nathan Peterman was the quarterback.
I was actually just watching some Seinfeld bloopers, so that's exactly where my mind went also. I'll tell you what, Chris, let's start looking forward after we go to this break.
WFXS, once again.
The Fox, your sports radio.
Broadcasting live, loud and proud from Central PA's Sports Authority. WFXS America.
98.7, The Fox, State College.
Happy Valley United is the NIL collective that serves all 31 sports and over 850 student athletes at Penn State. These opportunities allow student athletes to engage with charitable causes and participate in business engagements to build their brands while making a positive impact. The collective connects fans, alumni, businesses, and charities with student athletes harnessing the power of Nittany Nation. Go to happyvalleyunited.com to connect with your favorite Nittany Lion team.
Whether a department outing, entertaining your clients, or reconnecting with your family and friends, let Revel XP take the hassle out of tailgating. Simply show up and immerse yourself in the tailgating experience. Full service includes bellhops helping upon arrival and tear down when you're ready to leave. Revel XP elevates your tailgate. Reach out to us directly at 814-933-4100 or go to revelxp.com for more info.
2 of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing of State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
I'm the Modelo Recruiter, and I'm looking for fans with good hands and great speed. The ones who stay focused and never miss a play. They go the distance on game day, even when their team is away. I'm always watching, always looking to reward more full-time fans. Because football isn't really football without you.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Hi, welcome to Timberland Federal Credit Union, a financial cooperative for its members, tracing all the way back to 1973.
Experience Timberland Federal Credit Union, where you're greeted with a smile and financial solutions are tailored to your unique life journey. Here, we're not just financial professionals, we're your neighbors. People invested in your financial needs, literacy, and empowerment. Your dreams matter to us, whether they're about buying a home, growing a nest egg, or embarking on new adventures. TFCU draws from the past and invests in the future, offering modern tools like online banking to give you the freedom to manage your money practically anytime. Additionally, we're passionate about giving back both time and resources because enhancing our community is at the core of why we're here. Visit TFCU in person or online to learn more about our services and apply for a membership today.
Hello and welcome to Friday Football Frenzy, brought to you by Keystone Sports Network, Fox Sports Radio 98.7, and Happy Valley United, the Penn State collective supporting over 800 student athletes. Now, let's start the football frenzy.
Hello and welcome back to the Friday Football Frenzy, brought to you by Happy Valley United. I'm Jim Galanti. He is my buddy Chris Buchignani. We're coming to you from the Buffalo Wild Wings in State College. What a great place. By the way, we had lunch here before we started. How were your wings?
I did the mango habanero. Very good. Want to remind everybody who has not been in town and doesn't even know where this place is located. It is on the corner of Garner Street and Calder Way. If you're an old timer like us, you remember this as a parking lot across from the old movie theater and the G-Man.
It is no longer a parking lot.
No.
And you come here for your wings. I had the lemon pepper wings, which were great.
Classic.
But what I will add to this, and by the way, our chair setup did not work behind us blocking our cords. But anyway, I had them with the strategy, Chris. I didn't want something that would end up in my lap. So I know it's hard for you to believe that could happen. Fess up, come on.
Italians get gravy on the shirt front. It happens. You know what? Thankfully, though, you did let me use a little water from your cup. I dabbed it right out. I'm all good. All good.
Right. We survived lunch here. Highly recommend it. They have some great lunch specials. Fun place to get to. And, yes, more people have to discover that it is here. Chris, we're obviously talking about this Penn State football season. We're going back to last week's disaster. Went through a lot of that. But what I want to talk to you about is I'm not sure I've seen a fan base, any fan base, let alone the Penn State fan base, turn, I don't want to say from, it wasn't 100% behind this coach and now it's 0, but I don't even know the right words. Your vocabulary is better than mine. How would you describe the fan base reaction?
Not precisely unilateral, but about as close as you're going to get when you're talking about a population as large and diverse as the Penn State football fan base writ large, which is to include a number of subgroups such as students, alumni, just fans of the sport, fans of the team, people who have some sort of connection to the university without having attended it. All of those subgroups make up the fan bases of the big brand name college football programs. Now, some of them have a larger casual fan base than others. Certainly, like Ohio State has a lot of fans who just treat them like the de facto professional team from Ohio because their other choices are the Bengals and Browns.
So they are the professional team from Ohio.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of what have come affectionately to be referred to as Walmart Wolverine fans in Michigan country. University of Texas has a lot of casuals. Penn State has a fair amount, not as many as those three schools probably. But when you take all of them, if you were to poll a random sample, you would find more agreement in terms of vocal dissatisfaction than you see in most fan bases most of the time.
And the reaction, if there was ever a game to react that way, this was it. A week ago against Oregon, I didn't like the Fire Franklin chants in the middle of the Oregon game when it was still a game.
Yeah, I have some comments about that in a little bit, but let's keep going.
But with the disappointment against Oregon, you can still say, hey, look, that's a top 5 team. You lost to them in double overtime.
Yeah.
You showed some heart at the end. You were down 17-3. You were dominated to that point. You came back to tie it. You put it into overtime. You could find reasons, things to hang on to.
Sure.
A week later, a lot of that stuff just went away. The things to hang on
yeah,
to.
because it was a preposterous result. I mean, just to refer to it as unacceptable feels like understatement.
So now you have a fan base that they did a lot of venting this past week.
And they're not, to be fair, not sensing from based on what I can tell, and then just anecdotally, a lot of outrage from the program. Like, I sure would have liked to hear somebody in a leadership position at Penn State just acknowledge how profoundly intolerable that outcome was. Well, it's even sometimes you just have to call a spade and just come out and rip the Band-Aid off and be like, hey, yeah, guys, we understand. We really face planted on this one. Let's just let you know that we know, and then we got to move forward. And I think there was a missed opportunity to do that.
Well, let's talk about that, because you and I have chatted about that off the air, and that's my take on it. Is you face it. You're better off not pretending it didn't happen. And I'll start with James Franklin's interview right before halftime of the game. Now, typically, the networks will go to the coach who is ahead in the game.
Sure.
Okay. Especially when they're a 20-something point underdog. And maybe they made arrangements with James Franklin prior to the game.
I think it's just
that
you're trying to create good TV. And when you have the coach of the number 7 team in the country who's getting waxed by the worst team in the Power 4, you are hoping that guy is so angry he's going to say something that's going to make a clip that goes on to social media. So I understand why they did it.
Okay, I get that. I was hoping he would give us that clip also. Is that wrong of me to think, instead of him saying, you know what, we're just a little inconsistent?
Yeah.
No, you weren't inconsistent. You were bad. Wouldn't he have been better off just saying that was an unacceptable performance by my team in the first half? So it starts with me, goes through the coaching staff, all the way through the players. Nobody should be satisfied with what they saw in that first half. Nobody. And it's, there's going to be hell to pay in the locker room at halftime.
Because you're hoping, and to be fair, the number of things head college football coaches need to be good at is ridiculous. It's an absurd job, truly. It is a ridiculous job. But you're hoping he has the presence of mind to understand that in that moment, he's not talking to a sideline reporter, and he's surely not talking to his team. He's talking to the audience.
He's talking to us.
And the key portions of that audience are his fans and boosters. Yeah. And I mean, again, missed opportunities. I maybe the fact that he wasn't thinking about taking the opportunity to communicate is actually indicative of the fact that he was as upset as you would have liked him to performatively come across. But yeah, I think it's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Now, we don't know what was said in the locker room. Maybe he ripped out a couple lockers and turned over tables. I think we would have heard about it if that did happen, though. But
I doubt it.
But then come Monday, and it's time already by Sunday, this was a national story. Everybody who had a microphone was out and a camera was out in front of it and telling us.
Todd McShay dropped an F-bomb over this thing.
Well, there you go. And he was not the only one.
Yeah.
Fair. So
most people had the decency to do it in private, though, not on camera.
But now what you have is a university who obviously they hear what goes on. Okay, you and I both know that they hear this. So
probably way too much in my estimation.
So Now there is the
way too much.
So now, though, Chris, there's an opportunity here, which is how do you react to this?
Yeah.
How do you treat defeat? How do you treat devastation?
Sure.
And it appears that they chose to just go into their shell and not say anything. What should they have done? Was that the right strategy?
I think there are two directions they could have taken, and one of which is the one they've employed, which is read the room and just be quiet for a little while, because you're going to have to do your talking on the field, and not just this week, over the next several weeks. At the bare minimum, an opportunity to go on the road and play at Kinnick Stadium at night on a streaming service nobody gets, at least gives you the chance to have kind of a favorable mixture of a win everyone will give you credit for, given the reputation that stadium has in a night game environment, but a team that has an offense we'll charitably describe as limited. So, this is a team that, just in terms of the two teams on paper, you ought to be able to beat. A lot of the credit you'll get is not because you beat Iowa. It will be that you won at Kinnick at night. So there's an opportunity waiting. You'll get no credit no matter what you do versus Northwestern. If you show any signs of weakness whatsoever, everyone will pounce. And if you blow them off the field and win by 40 points, everyone will say, yeah, congratulations, you beat Northwestern. So really, you're talking about a 2-week period, so you can clam up and say nothing, and that's been the approach, and I don't think it's the worst. To me, we live in a short news cycle era where first movers advantage is always a critical. It can be a critical advantage that you grab if you have the forethought to aggressively seize on it. And to me, I looked at it on Sunday night and I said the one thing that the administration has going for them is they have the imprimatur of speaking with the authority of Penn State University. You can put yourself behind in front of a camera or behind a podium and a microphone, and when you speak, everyone has to listen and react to what you said. So if I were advising the folks at Penn State and in the athletic department, I would have said, go on offense. Have something substantive to say in response to all this conversation, anticipating what is going to be said by your customers, because make no mistake, that's kind of what we are anymore. And that's kind of a point I want to get into a little bit later. But give everyone else something to react to. Because I know, Jim, the weaknesses we have in our industry. Like, we're not the brightest lights on the porch here as a group. And I'll include myself in that. You dangle something shiny in front of us, we all can't help ourselves but react to it. And if you're the one choosing the manner in which the shiny object will be shown to the media, then you're dictating the terms of engagement. And I think it was a missed opportunity to not go on offense early in the week with your messaging. But barring having done that, I think the next best thing then was to STFU, if you can get the abbreviation. And that's what they've done, and not the worst thing in the world, in my opinion.
No, it's not. And ultimately, they will be judged by how they finish out the season. Okay?
Correct.
That's what's going to happen.
That's what I'm saying. You got 2 weeks where you're really not going to have anything, unless you lose tomorrow. You're not going to have much to put forward until you go to Kinnick and you see how that goes.
Right. And they could look at those games as opportunities. If that's what James Franklin needs to be spinning to his team right now.
Absolutely.
That, guys, we lost 2 games. I mean, even after the Oregon game, they were already doing Ohio State a year ago lost 2 games and became national champions, okay? For those who are just listening and don't see the expression on Chris's face, let's just say he didn't jump all over that.
Because that's profoundly disingenuous to draw that comparison. Because Ohio State last season, throughout the year, win or lose, up by a little or a lot, was very clearly one of the, if not the most talented teams in college football. That has not been the case from snap one versus Nevada. So to try to use the commonality of 2 losses to equate where Penn State is right now and where Ohio State was at the end of the season is just, it's dishonest. And I'm not going to entertain that. I'm not going to dignify it. It's just, that is not a conversation we should be having internally or externally.
But
we should be worried about what we can control, which is, guys, we are lower than dirt right now. And so we're the most dangerous man in the room, a man with nothing to lose. And that's it. But please don't feed me the Ohio State comparison. It's so absurd that it detracts from your credibility if you try to speak it out loud.
But as a coach, don't you have to sell belief?
You have to sell
honesty
and authenticity. And to try to tell this group, guys, after you just got run off the field by UCLA, don't worry, though, you're actually Ohio State last year. No one's going to believe that. It strains credulity to such a point, it actually harms your ability to have to get your message through to your players. You got to be real about where this is. And guys, don't worry, we're Ohio State. That's nuts. That's crazy talk.
Okay. Do you know how coaches will bring in guest speakers?
Yes.
Like you get Saquon Barkley on a bye week for the Eagles to come in and talk to the team. How about this week, Coach Franklin rings up his good friend Chris Buchignani and says, Chris, I need a favor here, buddy. I need you to come in and deliver the message to my team. Not my message, the message you would create. So you've just been invited to that locker room.
Okay.
You're going to talk to all of the coaches, the coordinators, and the players. What's the message you're giving them right now?
Exactly what I just said. Guys, you started this season with everyone expecting the world of you, and I don't think it's a glaring headline to say you didn't handle it particularly well. But here's the good news. You're all still the same players who earned those plaudits during this past offseason. You're all still guys who are good enough at playing this game that you earned an invitation to have the honor to put that jersey on your back and play football for and represent Penn State University and everything that goes with that. The only thing that's different now from where it was 2 weeks ago is that pressure that was crushing you is off. Guys, everyone outside this locker room right now thinks you're a joke. And that, in a way, is freeing because now you have nothing to lose. And the only thing left to you, the only thing promised to you, is 7 more regular season games to do what got you here. And that's play the game like a god. So understand that you have nothing left to lose and appreciate and embrace that makes you more dangerous than any team in college football, and go out there for 7 more weeks and play like it. That would be my speech.
I'm ready to suit up and go, Chris.
Oh, thank you.
I have a couple years of eligibility. Do not forget that. Okay? So let's talk about...
No, I'm not saying it would work, but that'd be my best shot, Jim.
Well, let's talk about the team itself and their shortcomings and where we are coming up short with this team. And I know we're headed towards a break, but we'll get to more of this, after the break when we come back. But looking at this team and where the disappointing aspects of it, I want to go, position by position. And I'm actually going to start with the offensive line, Chris.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, this team would be built around.
Same.
The way they finished the season last year, even again in that loss to Notre Dame, the offensive line was pushing them around.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
A very good defense. They were pushing them around. And the thought was, well, gee, not only 4 out of 5 starters, but I think 7 out of the 8 top players returned.
Yeah, and as I've pointed out before, too, all due respect to Sal Wormley, who I think is probably mostly underappreciated for his time here, you almost expected an upgrade at the one vacancy, which was at right guard.
Right, exactly. And this is the first time I felt, not 1 good tackle, not 2 good tackles, but 3 good tackles, okay?
Yeah.
That's not normal for Penn State nor anybody else. So let's start there. And just with the understanding, after we're done talking about this, I'm going to ask you about Nick Singleton. I'm going to ask you about Drew Aller. I'm going to ask you about the rest of it. But let's start there, because that's where the offense starts, with that offensive line. And our colleague Andy Shea, when we talked about ranking who do you have the most confidence in, which position group, he didn't say running backs. He said offensive line. And Andy's opinion is very valid to me, and I found it hard to disagree too much with him. So what happened to the offensive line?
Because it wasn't just these players. To me, I talked about this on the Goon and Ironhead show yesterday when I was on with Goon and Jeff. It's the body of work since Phil Trautwein has got here, attracting and developing top talent at that position. And you go all the way back, Jim, to the 2022 Rose Bowl season. Penn State turned what had previously been a pain point for the team, and that was the offensive line, and consistently for 3 years running turned it into an advantage. So you not only returned experienced players who, as you said, were mauling guys at the line of scrimmage at the end of last season, but they were kind of inheriting the goodwill of several dominant offensive lines that played a big part in Penn State having 11-win seasons, right? So, again, is it complacency? Is it feeling the pressure and responding poorly? I mean, the answer is probably yes. And what's more, Drew Shelton made the point this week, and I think it was maybe misinterpreted by some folks because a quote reads differently than when you hear it sometimes. He said that we consistently have 4 guys doing the right thing and 1 guy doing the wrong thing. And some people read that and thought he was trying to imply there was one person who wasn't doing his job. No, what he was saying is, and this is an issue on an offensive line, is that from play to play, 4 guys were doing the right thing and 1 guy was making a mistake, but it was a different guy every time. And that's actually worse in some ways.
Yeah, it's always one. There's one out of the 5 aren't doing their job, making a mistake. And part of that, Chris, is you look at it and say, hey, as an offensive line, you're depending on each other to work as a unit.
Yes.
Okay, so it's interdependent. And, I dealt with this question from a lot of our listeners on the Keystone Kickoff show. They send in questions and will say, boy, this cupcake schedule, does that concern you? And this was ahead of the season. You'll play 3 cupcakes before you get Oregon. What does that do to this team as far as preparation? And I thought, well, you know what? If there were a lot of new guys there.
Yes. I think you and I both felt like a veteran team would not be as impacted by that.
It was more important. Let's keep them healthy. Let's get backups, get some more reps. That would be helpful. But as far as, a cohesive unit, I didn't think that was going to be a problem. By the way, I still don't think that's the problem with the offensive line, that they played 3 cupcakes.
No, I agree. Absolutely not.
But it does. And you brought up a great point that I hadn't thought about is Coach Trautwein has developed these guys so well over the years.
No doubt.
Turned the position
around. I remember what a pleasant surprise it was in 2022 in the run and pass protection aspects of their job. That O-line, they really fueled that run to the Rose Bowl championship throughout the regular season and definitely in that game. That's a really good Utah team that we beat.
Yes.
And they were stout and physical on the line of scrimmage, not a typical Pac-12 team as they were at the time. And I thought, man, we got something here. We got something going with Phil.
And going into this season, you felt like, the coaching was in place, veterans in place, depth in place.
Yeah.
And that's why it just boggles the mind what went wrong there. And, kind of, Chris, going to have to get used to that question because there's all of these things in places that, we thought was a given. And we're up against the break. But, Nick Singleton, he's, again, had 3 cupcake games. A game against UCLA, which should have been a cupcake game, okay? And he's
3.5, we'll say.
And he's averaging less than 4 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Which, part of that discussion, of course, is the offensive line. Although Katron Allen, you look at his yards per carry, much different. He seems to be doing okay. So, it just boggles the mind, and it's why I told you this week, not only did I have more people texting me during the game, I got phone calls and text messages all week from several people that I haven't heard from in quite a while. And it's like, Jim, could you tell me what happened? And the answer is no, I can't. And that's why I turn to others to help me out. And it's still searching for answers. And you talk about, specifically UCLA game, and we were talking about the different aspects, and they're not excuses, but they are part of the story. They travel to the West Coast, a different coaching staff over there. Was there something they did that could be unexpected? Although my real problem with that explanation, I hate that one, because that was not a plan where it's like, okay, here's what we're going to do, guys. Here's our strategy for UCLA, their team. Their strategy is, you know what? We're going to fail on first down. We're going to fail on second down. Then on third and long, what we're going to do is we're going to call a passing play, okay? Okay, now stick with me here. What we're going to have is eventually protection breaks down, and they're going to come in on defense, and Nico's going to run for 50 yards.
Well,
that's the game plan.
To be fair, and I know we got to head to break here, you talk about eventually being the key word there. Without having gone back and looked at tape, which I don't have the heart to do, frankly, it seemed to me like UCLA on third and longs, I guess somewhat out of necessity, was calling a lot of slow developing routes that went deep down the field. But that then created the opening in the middle that Nico took advantage to run. And part of the issue was in the time between the snap of the ball and when all that space opened up, he just wasn't feeling a whole lot of heat. He had time to stand back and survey the field in front of him and pick the direction he was going to run.
And unfortunately, there's absolutely zero things a defense could do when you have a quarterback who's able to scramble. There's nothing ever that can be done to stop that, Chris, especially on third and really long. There's nothing that can be done. And I think this is a good breaking point because you are biting your tongue right now. I can see it. I can see you doing it. All right. But I'm still going to ask you the same question when we come back.
Fair enough. We'll be right back.
WFXS, once again.
The Fox, your sports radio.
Broadcasting live, loud and proud from Central PA's Sports Authority. WFXS America.
98.7, The Fox State College.
Happy Valley United is the NIL collective that serves all 31 sports and over 850 student athletes at Penn State. These opportunities allow student athletes to engage with charitable causes and participate in business engagements to build their brands while making a positive impact. The collective connects fans, alumni, businesses, and charities with student athletes harnessing the power of Nittany Nation. Go to happyvalleyunited.com to connect with your favorite Nittany Lion team.
Whether a department outing, entertaining your clients, or reconnecting with your family and friends, let Revel XP take the hassle out of tailgating. Simply show up and immerse yourself in the tailgating experience. Full service includes bellhops helping upon arrival and tear down when you're ready to leave. Revel XP elevates your tailgate. Reach out to us directly at 814-933-4100 or go to revelxp.com for more info.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing of State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
I'm the Modelo Recruiter, and I'm looking for fans with good hands and great speed. The ones who stay focused and never miss a play. They go the distance on game day, even when their team is away. I'm always watching, always looking to reward more full-time fans. Because football isn't really football without you.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Hi, welcome to Timberland Federal Credit Union, a financial cooperative for its members, tracing all the way back to 1973.
Experience Timberland Federal Credit Union, where you're greeted with a smile and financial solutions are tailored to your unique life journey. Here, we're not just financial professionals, we're your neighbors, people invested in your financial needs, literacy, and empowerment. Your dreams matter to us, whether they're about buying a home, growing a nest egg, or embarking on new adventures. TFCU draws from the past and invests in the future, offering modern tools like online banking to give you the freedom to manage your money practically anytime. Additionally, we're passionate about giving back both time and resources because enhancing our community is at the core of why we're here. Visit TFCU in person or online to learn more about our services and apply for a membership today.
Hello and welcome to Friday Football Frenzy, brought to you by Keystone Sports Network, Fox Sports Radio 98.7, and Happy Valley United, the Penn State collective supporting over 800 student athletes. Now, let's start the football frenzy.
Hello and welcome back to the Friday Football Frenzy on Fox Sports 98.7. Our show is brought to you by Happy Valley United. We're coming to you live from the Buffalo Wild Wings in downtown State College. I'm Jim Galanti along with Chris Buchignani.
Hey-o.
Chris,
yeah.
When we last left, I was leaving you with some questions, wasn't I?
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting old. What was the question again?
You were asking whether or not there was anything that could have been done to ameliorate Nico Iamaleava gashing us through the middle of our wide open field on defense.
That's right.
Yeah.
Look,
and I mean, obviously, people have just beaten this to absolute death this week.
Is it fair?
Yeah, for sure. There was no spy on Nico until late in the game. And then, you go with Deni Dennis Sutton as your spy. And, I understand that's a tough loss to lose Tony Rojas to injury prior to this game. You really needed somebody with that athleticism and his instincts. Probably changes the game, probably turns a loss into a win. If you're one injury away from we're a national title contender to we're losing to a team in disarray with no coaching staff who's been as bad as any team in Power 4, you were never that good to begin with.
Right. I'm not buying
That's
it.
not an acceptable excuse. And again, the sort of thing that sounds so, trite, for lack of a better word, words that I probably ought not say on the federally regulated airwaves, that it would be better to say nothing.
My brother made the statement. So you're replacing your linebacker who could run a 4.3 something 40 with a 4.4 guy. So should it really be that big a difference?
And the question is, there's nobody in that safety room, not to mention any of the other 8 guys on scholarship at the linebacker position here at linebacker U who weren't at least worth a look. They weren't worth a look. I love Dom DeLuca, man. That guy is all heart and guts. He's made so many big plays for Penn State. He's been a really important part of a lot of victories during his career. We're just not having a great day. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you just have a bad day, and Dom picked a bad time to have the worst game of his career, but he was missing tackles he doesn't normally miss. And the fact that there is a reluctance, whether it's based on a lack of ability or just stubbornness on the part of the coaching staff, to try something else in the face of persistent failure, that's very troubling to me.
It is. And even if you're not an X's and O's expert, you could still look at this and say, my goodness, 3rd and long over and over and over again, they converted. You've got to be able to do something. And it's not a situation where you're playing Ohio State or, a team that is superior to you. If anything, this is a team of players with inferior talent to you. Okay. So as a coach, if you keep getting beaten with the same thing, 3rd and long and the quarterback scrambling for first downs, even if I don't know which X and O to move, I know you should be able to do something to it.
Yeah.
Let's flip back to the offense. I had asked you about the offensive line not living up to our expectation level. And you combine that with the running game. You have, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton returning. And I know there's a lot of talk about, Katron Allen's numbers are so much better through these 5 games than they are for Nick Singleton. And obviously it's why isn't he getting more touches than Nick Singleton? Because he's playing so much better. I actually give the coaching staff a pass on that because I think Nick Singleton has enough of a history. It's not like he's
fair.
This is his first time on the field. And so he has enough of a history, but it still brings up the question through 3 definite cupcakes. One should have been cupcake in UCLA, and 1 game against Oregon. Nick Singleton's numbers are very un-Nick Singleton-like, averaging less than 4 yards a carry. I'll ask the same question I did about the offensive line. What the heck is going on, Chris? Is he not the same player he was? Is he nicked up? Is it the play calling?
Yeah, so I think if I had to make a guess, I think it's probably 2 factors rise right to top of mind. First of all, all credit in the world to Katron Allen. He has really taken the natural gifts he arrived at Penn State with and refined them over the years. He always had great vision, good footwork, was very patient as a runner, and he's only gotten better with that. He has really improved his toolkit. And so he is now, as a senior, I think one of the slipperier backs in the country, which is funny for a guy who's nicknamed Fat Man, but he really is. If the O-line is not mauling people at the line, as we established they have not been, he is really your better option to trying to slip through smaller cracks that line is creating. That's not Nick's game. It never really has been. He's been, give me a hole, let me hit it, and then I'll just use my speed to leave everybody else in the dust. But you've got to create that opening. I am not going to meet you halfway in the same way that Katron Allen is. So I think that's part of it. We also heard about how, you change at running backs coach, and Stan Drayton comes in with a very impressive resume, having been a head coach at Temple, having coached running backs in championship environments under Urban Meyer at Florida and Ohio State, as well as at Texas. And his goal was to improve both of these upperclassmen backs going into their final season by teaching them to work on the little things, maybe identify things that they hadn't seen before, to think about the game a little bit differently than they have previously. And I think that took with Katron, and I think with Nick, it probably forced him into an overthinking mode. And this is not just armchair psychoanalysis. I mean, James Franklin has pretty much said as much about him over the course of the last few weeks.
Well, I find it difficult to imagine that a running back, I've heard it's a new running backs coach. Well, it's not a new offense. I find it hard to believe that, the running backs coach has that much effect on how a guy runs. There's a lot of natural instinct that, Nick Singleton came to Penn State already had. We saw him as a freshman. And, I could see that, there's a possibility he's overanalyzing, overthinking, perhaps, and I'm oversimplifying this sometimes when, there's not the hole, and he would instinctively look to bounce it outside, looking for, which he could get away with all the time in high school. And they said, hey, get what you can. And maybe that causes him that little bit of hesitation. wait a minute, is this one of those situations where I got to get 2 yards that I'm supposed to?
I believe you can overcoach natural athleticism. I mean, I'll never forget, man. This is going way back, and it's a different sport. But since we were talking about the pain of being a Philadelphia sports fan, I remember the Flyers made a run to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2000 with a rookie goalie named Brian Boucher, who, if you're any NHL fans out there, they know him as a commentator now. Well, Brian Boucher was never a better NHL goalie, even though he had a long career than his rookie year, when he was getting by on just being himself and doing all kinds of things that you would never conventionally coach a goalie to do. But it was what he did, and it's what made him great. And then over that offseason, the coaching staff thought, man, this guy is so good without having his mechanics refined. Imagine how much better he'll be once we teach him to be an actual goalie.
Oops.
And it messed him up. It's kind of like you see it in basketball sometimes, where a guy has an unconventional release on his shot, but the ball goes through the hoop. The best thing you can do is let that guy keep releasing the ball however he wants to, as long as the outcome's being achieved, which is that you're scoring buckets. Kind of the same thing. Maybe sometimes some running backs can't be coached to be the most technically sound football players, but they're making plays and they're getting yards, and you should just know when to leave well enough alone. I'm not necessarily saying I think that's the case with Nick, but I do think it's possible.
How much is play calling a factor in this? How much of it is getting Nick Singleton in a position to succeed? And the one play that I brought it up on our show earlier this week, I believe it was the very last possession where they had Nick Singleton. He was out with a couple of wide receivers, and they just a quick wide receiver screen in essence to him, and he picked up 9 yards on first down.
Yeah.
And he was sort of out there in the open field and could kind of do Nick Singleton things. And it, from a layperson's standpoint, it just doesn't feel like they're doing that with him right now.
Speed. Get him in open space. Yeah. I think that's fair. I think it's a fair criticism. I think off and on throughout his career, that we have not always taken advantage of what he does naturally well with the play calling. I also think that going back to sports teaches life lessons, not all of them pleasant. I think that after a game or two worth of sample size, where it was already pretty obvious that Katron was outshining Singleton, I think that would have been the time to say to him, hey, Nick, we're going to give you an opportunity to cool down and watch a little bit, because reps are earned in this program, not based on what you've done, but what you're doing. And the good news for you is that you can choose to view this as an opportunity to get your head right, an opportunity to sit back and take a little breath, to watch what's happening, to concentrate on the little things in practice and earn more reps in the future. But right now, Katron's playing better, and the best player will play. That's the commitment we have made to every guy in the locker room here, to your teammates and to you, frankly. And I think at that point, that could have become a teachable moment for him. I think now, 5 games in, 3-2, alarm bells blaring, you sit him down, I'm not sure it has the same psychological impact. I think the opportunity to make it a teaching moment and salvage the most out of a frustrating situation as a football player, let alone a guy who's been a star his whole football career, that's a narrow window to sit somebody like that down and have something positive come from it. And I kind of feel like that window might be closed with Nick Singleton now.
It's a very hard thing to do. And
half the season's gone. And probably Katron Allen is starting to feel a little resentment. I would.
Well, the problem with that, though, from my standpoint, is if you're going to do that, you, I believe, need to be able to say, you know what, Nick, this is what you're doing incorrectly.
Yeah.
And again, we're lay people. We don't have that,
most definitely
coach's certificate on our wall.
Yeah, no question.
So how do you, look at that? Can you look at game film and say, aha, look, this play, See, Nick, you zigged and instead of zagged. You know what I'm talking about. If I can't tell you what it is you need to work on, what you're doing wrong, the follow-up to that is this a case where, gee, the offensive line is not creating any holes? It's the difference between Saquon Barkley playing for the Giants and playing for the Eagles. Are you
that may be the most frustrating situation of all, when you have to tell the kid, we're going to sit you down, not because of your own failures, but the inadequacies of your teammates. And K-Tron is better equipped to weather those inconsistencies than you are. I mean, yeah, that's frustrating. But once again, it's not. This is not a participation trophy situation. I hate using that term. It's so overplayed. But truly, it ought to be a meritocracy, and that ought to be a universal understanding in the locker room. And you need to be prepared to bruise some feelings at times.
And I guess I just can't help feeling, Chris, though, that there's still ways that this and I don't want to sound snarky, but I can't help myself. It'll come out snarky. This genius of an offensive coordinator should be able to find. I don't think Nick Singleton forgot how to run the ball.
Yeah, right.
Okay. He's still an immense talent. And I have to, if I'm that coaching staff, have to look internally to say, you know what? We're not doing right by this player.
Yeah.
Because this is, an All-American running back who, it's like the old joke, who's the only person who could hold Michael Jordan under 20 points a game?
His coach.
Yeah, Dean Smith.
Yeah.
And it's the same way. It takes quite a bit to hold Nick Singleton to under 4 yards a carry.
Yeah.
So, unless he's hurting, unless something's going on, I'm pointing to the coaches that even if they're, initially the plan seemed like a solid plan going in, hey, the plan was my offensive line is going to be opening up holes like crazy for these guys. And maybe that's not happening. And because of that, K-Tron Allen is doing, a much better job. But I then, as a coaching staff, I think I have to look internally and say, what do I got to do to get Nick Singleton going? He's too talented for him to be, getting 3.5 yards a carry.
Yeah, well, everything we talked about in the first hour about pressure and how well you handle it as an individual and as a group, that applies to more than just the players. I think we would love to believe that coaches, especially ones who are well compensated, have every answer. The fact of the matter is they don't. This game is played and coached by humans and have all the failings and idiosyncrasies that come with it. And I get the sense like the pressure and expectation of this season and a negative response to it isn't exclusively confined to the locker room and the guys wearing the pads on Saturday. I think top to bottom, organizationally, we just weren't prepared to handle the expectation of being number two and everything that was heaped on us locally, regionally, nationally. And when things start to go bad, as I said, it can go one of two directions. And if it results in distraction and resentment and finger pointing, it metastasizes quickly.
Well, you talk about pressure on someone who's shouldering so much. The one name we haven't talked about, Drew Aller, the quarterback.
Yeah.
And
he's been on an interesting journey these 5 games.
He really has. And a year ago, his numbers against the Cupcakes, like we saw this entire out-of-conference schedule. There were games, he was like 20 of 23 for 200 yards. They didn't have him slinging the ball all around, throwing 35 passes. But it was so efficient that, again, I know the numbers against some of the top teams, that hasn't been the same. But we at least saw that against teams of lesser talent. This year, you couldn't have found any lesser talent than what we saw in this out-of-conference schedule. And right from the start, we haven't seen, from Nevada forward, we haven't seen that performance from Drew Aller.
Except last week.
Yes, we saw some,
I think
some
he was
moxie, I think,
he was
from him.
yes. Yeah. I think he was the best player on the football field for Penn State against UCLA.
But with that said, there's still so much going on, not going on for him. What's going on in his head? And I'll eventually get to that same question I asked you about Nick Singleton. Is the offensive staff and the play calling best serving Drew Aller?
I mean, you're clearly setting me up to say
Yes,
no, and it's pretty obvious that that's the answer. And again,
and by the way, yes, I was setting you up.
Sure. I mean, look, it's not rocket science, okay? And which is when I go back to, like, please, for the love of all that is holy, don't compare us to Ohio State last year. Like, I mean, it's just so ridiculously insulting to the intelligence of any listener to say, well, because we have 2 losses and Ohio State had 2 losses, they're basically the same. I mean, that's like saying that
me and George Clooney, we both
that's like saying because I look exactly like the new head coach of the Penguins that I could also be the head coach of an NHL hockey team. I get it. I get where you're coming from, and everybody wants to say, well, it's more complicated, it's more nuanced, it's this, it's that. Sometimes when the layman looks at something and comes to a conclusion, and then I hear Joel Klatt, who I think is a smart guy, who knows football, who's played the position at a high level, and who has analyzed the game for years, come and say the exact same thing. It's like the wisdom of crowds. Sometimes it's not that complicated. And when you come out and you say, if it's as evident to Humpty Dumpty from Snowshoe as it is to Joel Klatt, and then you come out and you say, well, no, it's actually much more complicated. It's, again, it's another one of those situations where sometimes it's better to be silent and be thought a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt.
And that's where I lay so much on the coaching staff. I started this conversation saying, the UCLA game, to me, what hurt so much is that I feel like a layperson could point at the coaches and say, they didn't do this, they were outcoached here, outcoached there. And these are not dumb people in the Lash building, okay? What is it? Why are we looking at it? Is it a case where they're making it, and it's simple arithmetic and they're turning it into calculus? Why do I get that feeling?
Well, that is probably above my pay grade to answer. I mean, I feel like a broken record other than to just say, these are clearly, it's like with the players. We've seen them do it. We've seen them do this at a high level. If this was my first exposure to this staff and this program was this season, I would say, well, they're just not up to it. They stink. They don't know what they're doing. We know that's not the case. We know it. So what other answer can I give than in the moment when the kitchen got the hottest, they just weren't ready for it? I mean, it happens sometimes. And and sometimes it may be that you're just caught in a bad confluence of circumstances where one thing goes wrong and then you get stuck in a spiral from which you can't escape. So it might have been that if that football bounces differently when Nico fumbles it, or not Nico, excuse me, when Dante Moore fumbles it in the whiteout and Penn State recovers and wins the game, all these other issues work themselves out. But because he didn't and it didn't, that led to one thing, that led to another, that led to another. And again, if it's like I said, coached by humans. Put yourself in this situation. You're a member of this staff. We talked in the first hour about how the fan base has never been more unilaterally against status quo inside the football building. And you're seeing that. And you're trying to do your best, and you're at a loss for why these talented kids you're coaching aren't taken to what you're teaching. and you got a family and you got a professional reputation and a future you're thinking about, and you're starting to look around and you're going to say, well, maybe that guy's not doing his job and I'm catching strays. Like, what's going on? And all of these things can start to spiral out of control, which is why I would just say the message has to be, folks, we're in the foxhole together. There is nobody else out there coming to save us. It's us or no one. And that's the good news. We're the 2017 Eagles. We all we got, we all we need.
And it's the old, we're in the foxhole together. It's us against the world.
Yeah.
That's the speech that has to be made. All right. I keep threatening to talk about things going forward. I promise when we come back, I want to talk about those Northwestern Wildcats and what we need to do going forward, Chris. Let's take it to break.
WFXS, once again.
The Fox, your sports radio.
Broadcasting live, loud and proud from Central PA's Sports Authority. WFXS America.
98.7 The Fox State College.
Happy Valley United is the NIL collective that serves all 31 sports and over 850 student athletes at Penn State. These opportunities allow student athletes to engage with charitable causes and participate in business engagements to build their brands while making a positive impact. The collective connects fans, alumni, businesses, and charities with student athletes harnessing the power of Nittany Nation. Go to happyvalleyunited.com to connect with your favorite Nittany Lion team.
Whether a department outing, entertaining your clients, or reconnecting with your family and friends, let Revel XP take the hassle out of tailgating. Simply show up and immerse yourself in the tailgating experience. Full service includes bellhops helping upon arrival and tear down when you're ready to leave. Revel XP elevates your tailgate. Reach out to us directly at 814-933-4100 or go to revelxp.com for more info.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing of State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
I'm the Modelo Recruiter, and I'm looking for fans with good hands and great speed. The ones who stay focused and never miss a play. They go the distance on game day, even when their team is away. I'm always watching, always looking to reward more full-time fans. Because football isn't really football without you.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Hi, welcome to Timberland Federal Credit Union, a financial cooperative for its members, tracing all the way back to 1973.
Experience Timberland Federal Credit Union, where you're greeted with a smile and financial solutions are tailored to your unique life journey. Here, we're not just financial professionals, we're your neighbors, people invested in your financial needs, literacy, and empowerment. Your dreams matter to us, whether they're about buying a home, growing a nest egg, or embarking on new adventures. TFCU draws from the past and invests in the future, offering modern tools like online banking to give you the freedom to manage your money practically anytime. Additionally, we're passionate about giving back both time and resources because enhancing our community is at the core of why we're here. Visit TFCU in person or online to learn more about our services and apply for a membership today.
Hello and welcome to Friday Football Frenzy, brought to you by Keystone Sports Network, Fox Sports Radio 98.7, And Happy Valley United, the Penn State collective supporting over 800 student athletes. Now, let's start the football frenzy.
Back to the Friday Football Frenzy, brought to you by Happy Valley United, the Penn State NIL, serving over 30 sports and over 800 student athletes at Penn State. We are brought to you also by Buffalo Wild Wings, where we are live in downtown State College, right on Garner Street. Great place for wings, as we found out for lunch. Chris,
Yes, sir.
We've been looking back essentially for the first 3 segments of the show. We had to. It was too much going on not to. Now it's time to look forward. A lot of the season left. There are still tough games. The good thing for Penn State.
A ton. Yeah.
And I'm not avoiding Northwestern. We'll hit Northwestern. But when you still have Iowa at Kinnick at night.
Yep.
You still have to go to Columbus. You're still hosting a top 10 ranked Indiana team.
Which I think, again, they don't have any opponent after this weekend that scares the heck out of you. I think it's definitely possible they're still a top 10 team by the time we get to that game, even if they don't beat Oregon.
Indiana, Oregon tomorrow. Who are you picking?
Oregon.
Who do you want to win?
Yeah,
What's better for Penn State?
It's better at this point for Penn State, I think, for Indiana to win, right? Because you want to be able to beat you want a shot at as highly ranked an opponent as possible. So probably better for Penn State if Indiana wins, I think. But look, it's not terrible either way. That's the good news.
Yeah, it is. And if you're this Penn State team,
unless Oregon just blows their doors off, which I don't think is going to happen.
Well, that's the one thing you don't want to have happen, because then you get the Indiana is a fraud conversation.
Yep.
like we heard last year, and you definitely don't want that. So, but if you're James Franklin, you've got to be selling your team on, look, guys, it's still all out there in front of us. Let me tell you about this 2016 team that started the season, 2-2 and won their last 9 games, and
won the Big Ten
won the
and
Big
should
10.
have been in the 14 playoff.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if that's possible, a 12-team playoff, this team finishes 10-2 with wins over Indiana, Ohio State, on the road at Iowa. It's still a playoff team. Much as I understand what you're saying about the Ohio State analogy, this isn't Ohio State. But what you can do is say, guys, it's still in front of you.
Well, and don't forget also, Jim, that very, very possible, maybe even probable at this point, that Nebraska comes in with only 1 loss.
There you go.
Yeah, there are plenty of opportunities for quality wins left on the resume.
The unfortunate part is that means there's also opportunities for losses.
Well, sure, but that's the beauty of it. Once you've lost to UCLA, you understand that it's like, Achilles after he got shot in the heel. You're vulnerable to anybody.
Yes, they are definitely vulnerable.
This team will not overlook any opponents for the rest of the year, right?
All right, let's say, and perhaps not a good assumption, let's say they do beat Northwestern tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I know it's scary to assume anything right now with this team. What do you think the point spread will be at Iowa?
Oh, wow. That is a good question. Penn State will be favored. I am confident, because I think, again, Vegas is just going to look at that Iowa offense. Now, as we said in the last hour, Kinnick has a mystique to it that I think is respected in the same way that the whiteout is respected. And Vegas always gives us a little bump when we're playing under the lights with the home crowd. So I am going to guess, I bet it'll be Penn State a little more than people would expect. I bet it'll be Penn State -6.5.
Really? I was thinking 4-5, so I'll say 4.5.
I just have this feeling like it's going to be bigger than people expect, because now, again, I don't know, maybe all the credit we've been getting so far from the Sharps is going to be down the drain after we lose to UCLA. It's a lot of it will depend on how we look versus Northwestern, but I just kind of look around at some of the other lines from this weekend, and there are ones that surprise me that still seem to be hewing more to what conventional wisdom would have been in August versus what it is right now.
Well, you spend an entire offseason determining that this Penn State team is one of the top 3-4 teams in the country.
Yeah.
And forgetting Tony Rojas for a second, they're essentially the same team. They're essentially healthy, mostly healthy. Yeah, this is the same team, the same talent. And I know I do a show every week where we take the spread, we make our picks, and it's the same conversation every week about this Penn State team. They're going to wake up.
Oh, look, we're favored by 21.5 this weekend, which is one of those lines that I actually find surprising.
Yeah, and I think it's exactly what you said about the validity to the statement that they still think of this Penn State team as the team they thought they were going to see back in August.
Yes, correct.
And it's still thought of that way. So going into now I'm beginning to revise my 4 to 5 points a little bit. But again, it depends on how they look tomorrow against Northwestern. So let's talk about the game a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you said you watched a bit of Northwestern. What should we know about them?
So I think Northwestern now looks like a poor man's version of most Northwestern teams we've seen since the Gary Barnett era, right? When they finally got out of being a complete doormat. And there are always going to be limitations on Northwestern based just on the academic standards of the institution. They're not going to be able to enroll some of the players that other schools that play a little more fast and loose with their school's academic standards do. You know, that was one of Brian Kelly's big beeps with Notre Dame. He went to LSU in part because he thought he could get more kids through admissions than he could at Notre Dame. And Northwestern is probably even more strict with that. And on top of that, it doesn't have a great brand. So there are always going to be limitations. But through thick and thin, what formula has worked through Barnett and Randy Walker and the Pat Fitzgerald era right on up through where we're at today with David Braun is we're going to try to spread you out on offense. And on defense, we're just going to emphasize getting the best, toughest kids we have and hope to have a couple of playmakers. Now, the issue that Northwestern has today versus using that formula, let's say 10 years ago, is that I think schools and programs like Northwestern have been squeezed the most by the current era of NIL plus the transfer portal. Because they can't be, or at least they've to this point showed an unwillingness to be competitive from a quote-unquote salary standpoint. And as a result, if they do end up developing anybody who they're able to get in the door, those guys are probably getting poached. So it's the same formula that Northwestern has been, surprisingly competitive with throughout the 21st century. But the caliber of athlete from top to bottom is lower than it's been.
Well, and I know the NIL is a conversation for another day, and we'll have plenty of opportunities. However, I can't help myself. Is Northwestern a very good school with a lot of grads, a lot of alumni who have a lot of money?
Yeah, sure.
And they're doing the big stadium thing also.
They're investing a ton in facilities at the moment. Yeah,
they are. So if you're investing that much into facilities, is it that big a stretch to invest in players also?
Look, no, definitely not, because you are the closest corollary to Northwestern is probably Stanford, right? In terms of a school with sky-high academic standards that also has some aspirations to be competitive in football. I think, frankly, Stanford has probably not just been better, but placed more emphasis on football than Northwestern has, even in this kind of the post-Gary Barnett era when they've tried to be a little bit more competitive than they were in past decades. Stanford is investing a whole lot, not just in facilities and staffing and everything, they are going to their donors, and they are going after people who are willing to fund NIL out there. So that's one branch of the unconventional paths that this era is now affording programs that could never be competitive before. The high dollar value, wealthy alumni base of a high academic standard program. Now you look at Texas Tech, what they're doing this season, that's a different variation on the theme where, look, no one is ever going to confuse Texas Tech with Northwestern and Stanford in terms of the prestige of the degree you get from that institution. You might confuse them if you were just comparing the bank accounts of their biggest donors, because there's a lot of oil money down there in Lubbock. And Texas Tech has pretty much gone out and just sort of kicked the door in by buying themselves a team. So I think the model, if a program like Northwestern or Stanford is to come out of nowhere, is to just go to their donors and say, hey, look, Texas Tech did it.
SMU is the other example.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, help us go out and buy talent. And that ought to be an especially easy sell at Stanford, because Stanford has fielded some very competitive, great football teams that run Rose Bowls and were just outside playoff conversation in recent memory. And so if I'm trying to push that dream at Northwestern, that's the dual-pronged attack I'm saying. I'm saying, look, we can be just as competitive in terms of buying a roster as Texas Tech. And if you're telling me we can't do it because of our academic standards, then explain to me the Jim Harbaugh and David Shaw era at Stanford. That was not like some far misty past where that happened. That's like last decade.
It is, and that shows you it can be done. Again, I said I wouldn't get you off tangent with that conversation, and I did. Let's go back to...
Well, I mean, you can only say so much about the dynamics of a matchup with Northwestern. Hey, this team stinks, everybody. We ought to justify the 21.5-point line.
Like the 24.5-point line last week against UCLA.
And we absolutely should have justified that as well.
And so the bigger question then is, okay, what does Penn State do? Both psychologically, emotionally, this is a damaged team right now.
Yeah, no doubt.
Emotionally. They've gone through it all. Drew Aller, I think specifically more than any other player on the roster, but the whole team has gone through this. The coaching staff, the coordinators, James Franklin himself. So what are they saying to prep this team emotionally? What are they going to do play call wise? Because me personally, I think there are things that they could do to make Drew Aller's life easier, to make Nick Singleton's life easier. And you know what? If those two players are playing better, if you're putting them in a position to succeed, the whole team is a much better team.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem. My answer to that question before UCLA, I did kind of get what I wanted, which was create more opportunities for Luke Reynolds to take advantage of mismatches and make plays. Just didn't do it. When his number got called, he didn't deliver. And so I mean, this is the problem. I am starting to run out of solutions other than, could we please throw this game flow stuff in the garbage and just play the best player at the running back spot, not worry about contracts and feelings and game flow and all this other crap that has nothing to do with the fact that one guy is averaging 7 yards a carry and the other guy is tripping over that invisible line they project on the screen to show you where the line of scrimmage is. I don't know. Sometimes, Jim, I don't think it's nuanced. Sometimes I don't think there's a lot of complexities on top of complexities, like it's a shirt from Dan Flashes. Sometimes I think it's point A to point B, and the dummies in the cheap seats and the Joel Klatts and the Todd McShays of the world are aligned on this is actually just simple. Don't make it complicated.
Here's something I've talked about in different ways, but it always feels to me that Drew Aller is more comfortable in a 2-minute offense than he is in the rest of the offense.
It does seem that way, right? Because he performs most fluidly when the pressure's on, that we have to execute quickly because we're up against it from a time perspective, and we have to score a lot of points, right? You saw that in the fourth quarter against Oregon. You saw it again last week. So, yeah, why wouldn't you just adopt that mentality from the start?
We saw it against USC last year. We saw it against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah, that's a great point.
We've seen it over and over again from him. All right, I'm leading you somewhere with this, by the way.
Yeah.
And I've said this to the point where listeners of the Keystone Kickoff Show said, right now, they're out there saying, oh, no, not again. This is where Jim does his let Drew Aller throw the ball on first down speech. And you know what? If they're thinking that, they're right. And I think it's that 2-minute offense. He gets comfortable. He's going back. He's not just dinking and dunking, and he's not handing it off, the run, pass, punt. When he has to throw, it's 3rd and 7, and the other team, okay, we now know he's going to throw the ball. It's giving him a chance to throw the ball downfield. It seems like he's most comfortable throwing in that mid-range, that 15 to 20-yard pass where he's got tremendous arm talent, okay?
No question.
Right. There's no question. And I'm just told over and over, this is a team that's built around the running game. And it feels like they're coaching to, well, we got to establish the running game. No, you don't. I looked it up, Chris. I looked it up in the football rules. It does not matter. There is no rule that says you got to establish the running game before you can score points. I looked. I checked on it.
Jim, do you know
don't
what
have
team
to.
made passing to set up the run a thing?
Who was that?
In part, your 1982 Penn State Nittany Lions, the first college football team.
National championship team to throw for more yards. And if you remember, there was a pretty good running back coming back on that team.
I mean, one of the all-time best in this program.
And, by the way, he was also, if I recall correctly, a little upset early in the season because he wasn't getting the carries that he expected to get. Why? Because if you're a defense, you said stop Kurt Warner.
Yeah, right.
Well, we also have a pretty good quarterback.
Sure, maybe Todd Blackledge and Kenny Jackson and that offense.
Maybe we let them throw the ball.
Was set up. Yeah, we don't have a Kenny Jackson on this roster probably. I don't know.
No, he's not ready to walk into that locker room at any point soon. But you do have a quarterback with a big-time arm who's capable, and we've seen it. So, my advice is let Drew be Drew. Let him do – and you know what? And I'll bring this up, was it in the Oregon game when they're down 2 touchdowns, the first drive that went for a touchdown, they went and said, I'm reacting to people here stepping over our cords. I'm just waiting for one of them to go down, Chris. But
social Darwinism, Jim.
Yeah. The first pass, 9 yards, guess what? 2nd and 1 was the longest run of the game. And you can use the pass. So that I'm going to get off my soapbox, Chris, and ask you to react to Jim's game plan.
No, I'm with you. I think there's a lot of validity to that, and I would not hate a deep shot with no chance of connecting off play action on first down just to make that defense respect the possibility that you were going to make them go one-on-one with DeMonte Ross and give them a chance to catch a ball. And I don't care if that ball misses by a mile.
But we're willing.
Yes.
See, and I don't even think they have to go over the top. I'm thinking, 15, 20 yards down the field. That's enough. You do that, I think you've just established not only that we can throw the ball, we got a big arm quarterback, we improve his confidence, but now on first down, defense is saying, you know what? They just threw the ball for 20 yards. Maybe I need to respect that. And I think it opens up other things. So that's my game plan. And it's been my game plan for the last 3 years. Okay. Just so you know. And I'm still waiting for it to happen. And one of these days, Chris, it's going to happen.
Well, look, a misconception about Joe Moorhead was that he was a pass-first offensive coordinator. I mean, that was a run-based offense. And there's no doubt that Andy Kotelnicki's offense is much the same. And I'm sure the temptation is there when you've got two guys of the caliber that Nick Singleton and Katron Allen have been throughout their careers. And irrespective of the results so far this season, you know what you've got in your offensive line. I love running the ball. I love 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And so if that's your inclination to pass to set up the run, I find myself using this phrase a lot these days. When you live life as a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So I get it. I do understand it. But I do just wonder, are we so paralyzed by commitment to process, which I love, by the way. One of the things I like best about James Franklin is his commitment to process. I'm a process guy. I love that Herman Boone quote from Remember the Titans. I run split veer, 7 plays, it's like Novocaine, give it time, it'll work. I believe that's true. I also believe that all of that stuff, all of those rules, all of those guidelines, they are all to set you up for success in the moment when you have to make the leadership decision to throw them all out. And that's what needs to happen this week. Process needs to go in the garbage. 1-0 needs to be forgotten. We need to say, guys, we're not robots, we're human. If you want ChatGPT to coach the team, then they can do 1-0 and process no matter what. If you want flesh and blood humans doing this thing, then you have the freedom to take everything that has gotten you to this point and say, as Pedro Serrano said, forget you, Joe Boo, I'll do it myself.
Well, here's and the funny thing is, Chris, I like to relate what's going on in the football building to a business, and we all know it is big business.
Sure.
But if you want to relate to, when I talk about NIL or the transfer portal and players moving on, hey, don't be mad at the player for taking twice the salary. If you were offered in your job twice the salary across the street, would you go? Probably you would.
Yeah.
There's a fair analogy.
Probably.
And my brother's a very successful businessman. And I was talking to him the other day about this very throwaway process, go emotional. How often, I asked my brother, did you maybe you weren't truly upset, but you just needed the staff to hear that you were upset.
Yeah.
You need to walk out, stomp your foot, and let everyone have it. More times than I could count, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that to me is where James Franklin is right now. He needs to stomp his foot. He needs to yell, scream, and as you said, throw the process book out, because right now the process is not working. And it is, flesh and blood. They're human beings, and something is missing from this team. I'm not quite sure what it is. I'm not sure James Franklin knows what it is. But that's the time you need to go out off script, use your instinct as a human being. James is very good at relating to people and understanding them. Wasn't he a psychology major or something in college?
Yes.
Okay. How about it, James? I don't know what class it was, but there should have been a psychology class that shows this is how you influence people, and sometimes you got to get mad and stomp your foot, and sometimes you have to go off your plan. And if there was ever a time to do that, Chris, it's this weekend.
I know there's a kinesiology course at Penn State on philosophy and psychology of coaching because I took it. It was one of the best classes I took as an undergrad.
What were your takeaways from that class?
Oh, boy, you're asking me to dig deep into the annals of the long-forgotten past. Oh, boy. We probably don't have enough time left on the broadcast other than to say one of the takeaways was what I just said, which is you have to know thyself and you have to know what approach you trust to get you where you want to go. And then you have to, at key moments, have the courage to recognize it's time to chuck it and do something else.
And that's hard to do. And I would think it's especially hard for James Franklin to do that because for 98% of the time, his process, his book, his binder works. He thinks these things through. But there just happens to be the times, and this is one of them.
There's that one moment where you're Sean Payton to start the second half of the Super Bowl and you call the onside kick.
Exactly. And speaking of which, it was, as you pointed out, UCLA with absolutely nothing to lose, onside kick.
And that's us. I'm not saying do an onside kick. I am saying play loose, play free, understand you got nothing to lose, and that makes you invincible.
And you save that onside kick for Columbus.
There you go. I like it.
All right, so we're about ready to wrap up the show, Chris.
Yeah.
I need from you your prediction for Northwestern, and since this is sort of taking the place of our typical show with Andy Shea, I need a bold prediction from you also.
Okay. So my score prediction, I'm trying to remember what I said on obligatory. I think I said 24-17, and I want to die through most of the game. I'll just stick with that. And my bold prediction is that Gavin McKenna tallies 2 goals tonight against Clarkson.
That was a bold hockey prediction. Tell you what, and one of these games I'm going to be correct, Chris. One of these games I'm going to be correct. I keep thinking we are going to find out why everybody was excited about this team before the season started. One of these games is going to happen. They're overdue for it. So I made my official pick the other day. I forget what my numbers were, but I used the spread to tell me, so I think it was 31-7. Okay.
All right.
And
very possible.
But
your lips to God's ears.
If you're looking at this team the same way you looked at them in August, 31-7 seems very reasonable. It doesn't seem outlandish. Somehow now it does seem outlandish. I don't know how bold this is, but I have Drew Aller. If they're going to put up 31 points, he's going to throw for over 300 yards because they're finally they're listening into our show. And Andy Kotelnicki is going to say, my goodness, that Jim guy is right. I got to throw the ball to set up the run. That's my take on it, Chris.
Happy homecoming, everybody. Enjoy. It's great to be a Nittany Lion.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
WFXS, once again.
The Fox, your sports radio.
Broadcasting live, loud and proud from Central PA's Sports Authority. WFXS America.
98.7 The Fox State College.
Happy Valley United is the NIL collective that serves all 31 sports and over 850 student athletes at Penn State. These opportunities allow student athletes to engage with charitable causes and participate in business engagements to build their brands while making a positive impact. The collective connects fans, alumni, businesses, and charities with student athletes harnessing the power of Nittany Nation. Go to happyvalleyunited.com to connect with your favorite Nittany Lion team.
Whether a department outing, entertaining your clients, or reconnecting with your family and friends, let Revel XP take the hassle out of tailgating. Simply show up and immerse yourself in the tailgating experience. Full service includes bellhops helping upon arrival and tear down when you're ready to leave. Revel XP elevates your tailgate. Reach out to us directly at 814-933-4100 or go to revelxp.com for more info.
2 of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing of State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same